Hey, it's the Bearded Theologians here. I'm Zach Bechtold.
And I'm Matt Franks.
And today we have with us Geoff Parker with the Upper Room. And he's going to tell us a little bit about what it's like to work at the Upper Room and about some of the things they have going on. And so Geoff, start off telling us what you do there at the Upper Room.
Sure, so my role is specifically with young adult audiences. So I work with spiritual formation resources for the 18 to 35 age range. The biggest part of that has been starting building a new experience from the tradition of Walk to Emmaus and Chrysalis that we now call Journey to the Table. But it's been kind of an interesting road. Being the Department of Young Adult Ministry for the Upper Room means every book, every new author for the daily devotional, anything that hits that age range falls under my umbrella, which is kind of fun. It's a new adventure every day. It
is, and it's really good coming from a campus ministry and youth background to have more resources coming out that are very interactive and very cool for that 18 to 35 age range. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Journey to the Table?
Sure. So it comes from, and now we're starting to use the phrase that Walk to Emmaus and Chrysalis were really the launch pad to give something new life for young adults. Because what we did not want to say is that these ministries that have been useful for other generations for a long period of time would necessarily be useful for our generation as well. So we spent some time looking specifically at spiritual formation and learning characteristics of our generation to say, how do we build something that's going to be meaningful there? And in all honesty, I think, so we're just in the launching phases of Journey to the Table. And I think down the road, what we're going to find out is that Journey to the Table has a lot more life with campus ministries and churches and regional church bodies than even it necessarily has inside of Emmaus and Chrysalis communities. Because one of the big things that we learned in developing the program is it's just this simple question of how do we remove logistical obstacles and how do we make sure that we're going to where young adults are, instead of saying, hey, this is how we do spiritual formation, and ask young adults to join us. One of the statistics that's true about all fourth day communities, not just Walk to Emmaus and Chrysalis, but similar programs from other denominations and other traditions as well, is you're talking less than 10% of people who participate in those programs are under the age of 45. And so while we look at it and we say the spiritual formation content in these programs is something good and something beneficial that has proven itself over time, there's probably structural things going on. Simple things like, as a young adult, I don't necessarily always have vacation days to be gone for 4 days at a time to go to a retreat. So how do we make the schedule more flexible? And then even some kind of time relevance question. Believe it or not, it still says in some of those curriculum, silence your pagers, before you come into the conference room. But even more than that, what are the issues that are relevant for young adults today and relevant in the world around us today? And how do we talk about these things in a way that invites other people to the conversation?
Very cool. Having those relevant tools to come up with those conversations and having just updating the language, and that's really cool. And we're glad that the Upper Room is tackling that with us and for us, and working to meet young adults and people really where we are. We use your publications, the prayer devotionals and things like that throughout the church. Those are great resources too. And it sounds like this is going to be a great one to piggyback on with all of that.
One of the fun stories about the daily devotional. So every 2 months when a new edition comes out, the subscribership to that daily devotional around the world is about 3 million people. And that doesn't even begin to count, places where I might subscribe, but I actually share it with my family or I share it with my church group. But it means that every day when we pick up that daily devotional, we're reading the same scripture and saying the same prayers, 3 million plus people around the world. Which is one of the interesting things about working at the office of the Upper Room. So the Upper Room has been my first go to an office every day kind of job, which leads to all sorts of great jokes about office lifestyle and all this kind of stuff. But it's tangible in that building. I mean, when I walk through that doorway in the morning, all these things that you hear about in a spiritual formation realm, people actually notice if I'm gone. So right now I'm sitting in Houston, and I can guarantee you Tuesday when I get back to the office, folks are going to want to know, like, who'd you get to talk to while you were down there? How was the trip? How was your flight? You're super tall. Did you cram into an airplane seat? But we really tried to build a culture, and I say we because I get to be a part of it now. I've been there about 2.5 years at this point. So a lot of other people built this culture long before I ever got there. But even just our little group of the team that I work with there meets together and reads the daily devotional on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. We have chapel service on Wednesday mornings. We have just sort of a casual time of fellowship every Friday morning. It really is a place that just the process of working there becomes spiritually formative, which for me, in my first office, that's kind of a cool experience.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
So, is there, outside of the Journey, which sounds like an awesome program maybe for all sorts of young adult groups to maybe connect in with, what are some other cool things that you that are kind of coming out in the forefront from the Upper Room?
So a couple of the things that at least I'm personally really excited about and that also reach out very well to a young adult audience are some of our web-based ministry pieces. So we have a new website called moyoliving.org. Moyo is M-O-Y-O, and it's a Swahili word for heart. And what that community is designed to do is connect Christian formation with action. So what you see when you go there are different topics of issues around the world. So one of my favorite is race in the image of the divine. So how do our race relations impact our understanding of God? But we also have some very concrete issues like water issues. Where is water available? Where is water not available? And what does our faith have to say about that? But also, how can we be active even in just small ways? And so there's a lot of reflection and kind of intellectual engagement material out there to learn about new issues or to find out about other people's thoughts on these topics. But then there's also simple ways that people can be involved. As simple as stuff from, here's how you can find out about water issues in your own community. Or here's how you can strike up an interesting conversation with somebody about a race-related issue. So that hopefully what we're doing is creating a space that we're not just saying, I want to talk about this issue, but we're saying, I want to talk about this issue in a faith-based way, in a way that's going to be formative for me and for other people, and then let's go do something about it together. And what we found on that website is that pretty reliably about 1,000 people a day now are logging in there and interacting with some of that material. And of course, it's always sort of difficult to measure, how many of those folks are actually engaging with some of the action steps that are out there. But just based on the conversation that we see going on at that website, we know it's a pretty good percentage. We know that we're starting to build that connection for some folks to say, here's an issue I care about, and here's one little thing that I can do individually or with my group or in my community, or even if it's just as simple as sometimes making a donation to a bigger organization that's already doing that. It's sort of an avenue for that. On a different side of the spectrum, we've built, the best phrase I can describe it is a social prayer app called Memphis that functions exactly like you would think a social media type app would work, a Twitter or an Instagram or these kinds of things. But it's designed to let small groups, particularly of young adults, have a safe space to be in a prayerful conversation together. So I can message my friends from church and all these folks and let them know what's going on in my life and stay connected in a way that creates that safe space. And it also kicks off some relevant prayer prompts a couple of times a week just to give us more fuel for the conversation, and particularly when there's relevant world events going on that captures all of our attention. What's one little prayer starter that our group can use?
That's cool. That sounds like a lot of great stuff is going on at the Upper Room. We'd encourage you to check out the Upper Room at it's theupperroom.com, right?
Upperroom.org.
Upperroom.org. So check that out. And this is the Bearded Theologians here with Geoffrey Parker from the Upper Room. I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold.
And we'll catch you next time.